Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
So imagine that, but it's not just about homework tips. It's about a child's fundamental ability to communicate, their way of interacting with the whole world.
Right.
That's what we're diving into today, this absolutely critical need for synchronized speech language help for autistic children. Making sure home, school, therapy centers, they're all singing from the same sheet.
Yeah, key.
Our main sources here, there's pretty extensive research from AI4autism and also these really interesting insights from Presentation 1 by Lam Duong. We're really focusing in on the challenges and, the pretty serious negative effects when that coordination just isn't there.
And I think our mission today really is to understand the deep why. Why is the synchronization so vital? And what's the actual tangible harm when it's missing, especially during what the research calls this crucial developmental window?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that golden period. The sources really flagged this time, don't they? Specifically, ages 2 to 6 for autistic kids. Why is that window so important?
Well, it's critical because that's when the brain is just, developing at its fastest rate. It's incredibly plastic, really receptive to intervention. It's prime time for building those foundational skills. And the research, it's crystal clear. Inconsistencies during these years, they can have these huge, far-reaching effects.
Far-reaching how?
Well, not just impacting learning and communication right then and there, but things like future social integration, their overall development trajectory. It's like trying to build a house on ground that keeps shifting if that support isn't consistent.
That's a really powerful way to put it. Shifting sand. Okay, so let's unpack the fallout. We know why consistency is needed in this window. But what happens, right away? What are the tangible consequences when parents, schools, therapists, they just aren't aligned? What hits the parents first?
Yeah, our sources give a really specific example. Say a speech pathologist recommends focusing on verbal behavior, right? Teaching language through its function.
Okay.
But then the child goes to school and they're maybe mainly using PECS-CI, the picture exchange communication system, trading a picture for what they want.
Right, I've seen those.
Now, neither system is inherently bad,
No.
but if there's no bridge between them, no shared goals, well, parents are left totally confused. How do I help? What's the right way?
So they're getting mixed signals on how to support their own kid.
Exactly. And the tragedy is this inconsistency, it actually makes both approaches less effective. It just dilutes all that effort everyone's putting in.
Teachers, what hurdles do they face when a child's getting different signals at home or in therapy?
Well, for teachers, classroom management just gets way more complicated, significantly more complex.
How so?
The children respond inconsistently because they're dealing with these different rules, different expectations in different places. This can obviously lead to unpredictable behavior. The child might not know which method to use when or what's expected. And that makes it so much harder for the teacher to keep things structured, to keep the learning environment flowing.
So the teacher's spending more time managing the inconsistency rather than teaching. What about the child in the middle of all this? This seems like where the really long-term impact happens. What did the research show about the direct consequences for the child's development?
Yeah, this is where it hits hardest. It's, frankly, quite heartbreaking when you look at the data. First off, you see clear language development setbacks.
Setbacks?
Whoa. Well, the kids are getting conflicting instructions. Think about the mental load on a child who's constantly trying to figure out different rules for communication in different places.
Right, like trying to learn 2 languages at once, but only one works sometimes.
Sort of, yeah. Or maybe 2 dialects, and you only get rewarded for one depending on who you're talking to. It causes real confusion, and that directly slows down their communication progress. They struggle to really form and strengthen new language skills because there's no continuity. The consistency just isn't there.
So they miss out during that key brain development time.
And applying skills they do learn becomes super difficult when the methods are just so different across home, school, therapy. It doesn't stick the same way.
Okay, so language development slows down. What else?
Second, there's a significantly increased risk of behavioral disorders. We know autistic children can be highly sensitive to change. They often thrive on stability, predictability.
Right. Routine is often important.
Very. So when intervention methods are inconsistent, it causes real stress, significant anxiety. And that stress, it often comes out as notable behavioral issues. Things like screaming, maybe more self-stimulation, emotional outbursts.
Can you give an example?
Sure.
Yeah.
Imagine a teacher is really pushing for the child to use words words to ask for things. But at home, maybe using a gesture is perfectly fine, maybe even encouraged without needing speech. That child can get incredibly frustrated in the classroom setting, confused. Why does this work here but not there? And that frustration bubbles over into those behaviors. It's not necessarily defiance. It's often a response to that overwhelming inconsistency.
That makes sense. It's a reaction, not just bad behavior.
Precisely. Then third, this lack of synchronization, it puts kids at risk for delayed foundational skills and problems with social integration.
So it goes beyond just language.
Oh, absolutely. These foundational skills, they're not just about academics. They deeply affect a child's ability to connect socially. Well, the child gets mixed messages again. It confuses them, and it hinders the development of those really crucial social skills in a sustainable way.
So it impacts their ability to connect with peers, to integrate.
Yes. And ultimately, all these things together mean there's an overall reduced effectiveness of all the intensive efforts being made.
Even though everyone's trying hard.
Exactly. Parents, teachers, therapists, they're often investing huge amounts of time, energy, resources, but the inconsistent methods inadvertently undermine all that hard work, especially during this critical window.
Wow.
The research basically showed that despite all this effort, progress was often minimal or much slower than it could have been simply because things weren't joined up. And the result is these children might fail to meet important language and developmental milestones. They miss out on this key opportunity for growth that's, well, much harder to catch up on later.
That's incredibly sobering. The effort is there, but it's fragmented, so the impact is lessened. Did the sources point to why this happens? Why is it so hard to get everyone synchronized? Is it just people not talking to each other?
Communication breakdowns definitely happen, but the research, especially from AI4autism, it suggests something a bit deeper, systemic issues.
Wait, what?
Often it's rooted in things like siloed funding streams. Healthcare, education, social services, they often operate in their own bubbles. Each system might have its own goals, its own ways of measuring success, its own preferred methods based on different professional training philosophies.
Right, so they aren't set up to work together easily.
Exactly. Making that kind of cross-platform consistency really, really difficult without some kind of top-down unified framework. It points towards needing a more integrated approach in policy and how these services are actually delivered.
Okay, so just to recap quickly, we've seen just how vital this synchronized intervention is. The lack of it creates real, significant challenges for the kids directly, impacting their language, their behavior, their social skills, but also for parents feeling lost and for teachers struggling to manage.
Free audio post-production by auphonic.com.